Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Gus. I'm your host, 15-year NFL quarterback, Gus Frerotte. I want to thank you for joining us today. You can check us out at huddleupwithgus.com. You can go to wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We will be on there. We're on every network, so we appreciate you. We want to thank all of our sponsors today, the Little Blue Pill, Credit Guard, Nutrigenics, 1631 Digital News, always a big plus. Go to 1631 Digital News, check out their sports news, information, entertainment. They do a great job with that. And definitely check out to where our podcast is held at Sounder FM. Go to sounder.fm and check out our podcast along with many, many others. And we appreciate you listening. And please go to our YouTube channel so you can watch the video, not just listen to the show, but now you can watch our shows on our great YouTube channel, Huddle Up with Gus. So I appreciate you listening. And get ready for the show. It's a great one.
Welcome to what surely will be a doozy of a matchup right here, sports fans. Whether your game is on the gridiron, at the diamond, or on the links, we can only say, get up off your seats and get ready for some real action. Welcome to this week's Huddle Up with Gus. 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte, passion for sports, has taken him on the field and behind the benches, playing for 7 NFL franchises with 114 TDs under his belt. Gus knows who the players are and how the games are won.
It's not every day you get to hang out with an NFL quarterback, huh?
Okay, sports fans, from the decked out and plush 1631 Digital Studios, it's kickoff time. So snap your chin straps on and get ready to huddle up with Gus.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Gus. I'm your host, Gus Frerotte, 15-year NFL quarterback, and I want to welcome you to another show. You can check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcast or go to huddleupwithgus.com and like and subscribe. We appreciate you. Make sure that you share all your views with us and what you think of the show and send us some emails. We'd love to hear from our fans. So I want to thank all of our sponsors, 1631 Digital News. Appreciate you. MFN Multi-Format Network. MFN.net, check them out. There are guys that help produce our show. They're wonderful. And, we just appreciate all the people that are involved, especially Sounder.fm. Go to Sounder, check out podcasts, see what they're doing. They have incredible new technologies that will help you with your podcast if you want to do one. All right, everyone, today my guest, we've had him on before. The show didn't record as well as we wanted it to, so we're going to go back and redo it all. And I think we'll even be better this time. But my guest today is Drano Lano. Drano was a 25-year caddy on the tour and all over the world. He's worked with incredible players. I went to school with Kenny Perry. But Andy, I'm excited for this because I have a lot of questions. A lot of stuff has happened in the golf world in the last since we talked even. But I want to get to those. But let's talk about you a little bit. How are you doing?
Hey, doing great, Gus, and again, great to be back in the huddle, so to speak, and looking forward to today and sharing some fun things with the folks, and always appreciate the opportunity to do so.
Oh, yeah, you got a lot of stuff going on. You're up on the East Coast getting ready for your big charity event. Obviously, you have your golfmastery.net where you help people out, do a lot of things there. We'll get into all that stuff, but let's get into a little bit about your history first. Give us a quick rundown. I know you grew up in Portland, Maine. Tell me what that was like growing up there and how you got into golf.
Yeah, I mean, I born in Portland, Maine. My folks were born here as well. So our family lineage has been here roughly now about 100 years. So this has really been home to the Lano family. And my dad, who was a very athletic guy himself, he played 3 sports and he passed that on to us, or I should say gave us that opportunity. And he put plastic clubs out there. And for me, when I was 2 years old and I grabbed them and I walked around and banged a few things off tables, etc. But eventually I ended up swatting at the ball, and that's pretty much all where it started.
Yeah. Do you, you think back to when you were little, I'm sure you have a lot of memories of clubs are way too big for me and all these things. But when you see kids today doing and playing, they're more and more like Peter Jacobson's really trying to do diversity, inclusion. He's working with the HBCUs and doing different things. You see all these new people and how golf is trying to expand its boundaries.
Yeah, it's incredible. The awareness to golf now, you got U.S. kids, you got all getting these kids started at a young age, because you and I know, obviously you were a great athlete playing a tough sport in football, but there comes a time where you can't do that anymore. And you can play golf for a long, long time. I mean, it's a worldwide sport. Anybody can play it. And it just makes it really unique, making great friendships, and actually you can do business. I mean, it has a lot of parallels with life.
Yeah, and you see a lot of people when they play, they get angry, you know what I mean? Like, because they're not playing well. But for me, I never really was like that. Like, I just love being out, being with the guys or my sons. I play with my sons a lot, and just being out. And like you said, once football's over, there's no adult men's league where you can go play quarterback anymore, right? So the golf course is like the competition for us now.
Right. And no matter, like I tell a lot of my friends, these guys that are coming to the end, and, I'm sure you may have had to take this on, and I did too, really getting away from full-time caddying. Nobody really wants to come irrelevant. And with that, I mean, it's a tough deal, but, golf is so great because you and I know you don't need anybody to throw a ball to or retrieve any, anything or et cetera. You can go out, you can practice putt, you can hit balls, you can do all that on your own, get better on your own. You can take it really wherever you want.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing game. It's a mental game. It's also, it can be physical. It doesn't have to be. I mean, not many people that has that Freddie Couples nice smooth swing, right? You see people out there hacking away. My favorite thing to watch though is like when somebody like gets thrown with a single, and the guy has like this weird setup to like the drive and you know what I mean, and then it's just a normal swing. And it's like, okay, why did you do that for 5 minutes and then just have a normal swing?
Yeah, I mean, golf is unique, and there's lots of ways, like I tell folks, to get, to impact. I mean, and there's not everybody, as you know, you can watch the tour guys, the LPGA, the college kids, they all arrive at the same place, but they don't necessarily all do it the same. So that's what makes it kind of unique. And you and I know the hand-eye coordination is huge. I think that's really what makes like players like yourself, hockey players, pitchers, whatever, those guys, they seem to pick it up really, really quick. And I mean, it's a challenging sport. I never forget, I was talking to Kenny Lofton one day when he was in our Pro-Am, and he got up on this hole and he was nervous as you can ever believe. And here's a guy that I think they just won the World Series. And he hit the ball, and I said, Kenny, I said, what's the problem? He goes, I don't like this game because the ball doesn't move. He didn't like that down there by itself, and then he had to get it going. So he still ended up doing pretty well. That was an interesting comment he made, playing obviously a ball that moves.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of wild. Like his ball's sitting still, and all you got to do is hit it with this club, and yet it's like one of the hardest things ever. And even the pros, you think they do it all the time, and they're still shanking drives. And, for them, it was a shank. If they're 20 feet off the fairway, that's, to me, it's like, oh, they shanked that one. Like, we watch it all the time. So when you were in high school, I'm sure that you played on the golf team and did all that. What was that like for you? Did you want to be obviously you wanted to be a pro player, or what was those steps for you?
Yeah, that was a tough time for me because I was a really good baseball player, and those two seasons ran together. So when I came my freshman year, I kind of had to make a decision, and I was really doing well in junior golf. I was winning some junior tournaments locally, but it's Maine. It's not high level, but it was fun to, be winning and to be getting better and lowering your handicap, all that. So it was tough for me to give up baseball because I really was good at it. I loved it, playing on all-star teams. I'm not bragging, but I'm just saying it was that big decision for me. And so with that, I did go with the golf. And was, pretty good. We played individual matches, and we also played with our partners. So like the 1 and 2 guy, we played the 1 and 2 guy from the other high school. So it was fun competition. And, that I was aspiring to try to be out there onto the tour, but I didn't quite make it.
Yes. What is a golf off season like?
Here?
Well, like, you play, like golf happens in high school at a certain time of the year. So then
for me, it was on to basketball. So I played basketball, and I obviously played football prior to that. So, I mean, I was a 3-sport guy, and I was always busy with sports. So in the summer, really, golf was kind of the getaway for me on baseball and little league, senior league, all that, because it was a great release to get out away from all of that be by yourself and be with a totally different bunch of friends.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've been on a tour, you've caddied for a lot of big names, and you probably know these guys. Are a lot of them like athletes as far as like playing other sports, or a lot of them they've been like just golf for so long? You know what I mean? Like you talked about being a 3-sport athlete. Do you know if a lot of guys have done that, or they've just been golf?
If you start poking around on their past, most of them have at least played one or two. At least. I mean, Dustin Johnson, you probably heard, tremendous basketball. I mean, he could do anything. I mean, there's several of them out there that might surprise you, but you'll find that a lot of them had another sport, whether it was baseball or it was basketball, because I know in this day and age now we're all specializing. I still encourage the folks that ask me and the young kids that I speak to, I'm all about, sharing it up and trying to play some other sports, because there's other sports that bring certain things, even maybe to golf, but they bring things to your coordination, all that kind of thing. And I'm sure you experience that yourself.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it. I believe that everyone at least should try most sports, right? You may not stick with it, but try it and see if you like it. I think that's how people fall in love with things. So then you go to Kentucky for school. How did you get to Kentucky from Maine?
So that's an interesting story, because playing basketball, we used to play some, after the season was over, we used to still go on a certain night to the local gym, and guys would get there and we'd still have some really good games for some of us that didn't really want to quite drop it yet. And there was a gentleman there, a teacher around here, actually a WKU alumni. And I had indicated to him that I was looking to go south to try to play golf. Obviously, the season's short here. And he connected me down there with with Western Kentucky. And I'd also been in touch with Murray State. So I got in touch with the coach. The coach didn't have any money, but he invited me to come down and try out. And if I was good enough, he put me on the team. So I went down there blind, because back then you didn't have these videos and everything. You had a pamphlet and you had phone calls and that kind of old school stuff. So my parents were great supporters. They got in the car and they drove the 1,100 miles down to Bowling Green and dropped me off. And that was, I ended up qualifying, being on the team. That's how I met Kenny Perry. And it was a great experience. All my best friends, some of my best friends today are from college.
So between you and Kenny Perry, who can drive the ball further?
It's not even close, Kenny.
I played in a tournament when I was playing in the league. I was young. I didn't really know what I was doing in golf. I only started playing my senior year in college. And
you're a late bloomer, yeah.
Yeah, I was. And but I played in this tournament, a Reebok tournament up in the Cape area, and we had 3 people that sponsored it. It was myself, and then you got to play with a professional golfer, and Kenny Perry was with us. And I'm teeing off with the other guys, right? And I'm kind of hitting it further than they are. And then Kenny's back at the pro tees, which is like 50 yards behind us, and he's hitting it 50 yards past me. And I'm like, wait a second. I mean, I know this is a big dude, but he's not, there's no way he's stronger than I am. You know what I mean? And it took me so long to correlate that it's not about like how muscular you are, right?
No.
It's timing and all of that.
Yeah, it's using those big muscles. And you know what? Kenny never was a weight room guy. He never was what you saw with Kenny is what he developed from hitting a ton of balls and building up. He had some huge forearms. And, he also, there's the guy right there. So he was pretty good in high school basketball. So again, good long, we used to have games in the gym, shooting, 3-point shooting, that kind of thing. And he could fill it up from 20, 22 feet. So again, there's your athlete piece for him. Did he play football? No. Did he play baseball? No. But for him, it was hoops and golf. So they all most of them had their hand in something else.
So then, you caddy for Kenny. How did that come about? I mean, I know you played in college with them. I'm sure you've got to be really good friends. How did it come about to where you start caddying for him?
So he left school in 82. He was 2 years ahead of me and graduated. And I didn't graduate till 85. And then when I graduated, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I had some caddying experience, obviously, growing up here in the area. I caddied for my dad. I caddied at the club. It was a great way to make cash. There was only a few ways to make cash back in my day, and that was doing that, shoveling driveways in the winter and cutting lawns in the summer. So that used to put some cash in our pocket. But anyway, getting back to that, I decided in 1987, I called a friend of mine, Brian Clare, who I'd met coming up here traveling through the mini tours. He had made the tour, and I said, hey, I want to come out there and caddy. Do you know anybody that needs someone? He says, actually, I do. And I packed my bags, left Portland, Maine in 1987. Believe it or not, my first tournament, TPC at Scottsdale.
Wow.
You know now what that's turned into. I was there the first year that course opened. And then, I just I only really intended to do it a couple of years, but, ended up turning into 25.
25 years and over 40 majors, right? Like,
yeah,
an incredible career. Yeah.
Yeah, it was more than I really thought. But it just kind of had this snowball effect where I got kind of better at what I was doing. I had better players asking me to work for them. And the next thing you know, getting to Kenny, all of a sudden, 5 years into it, I'd kind of cut my teeth. Kenny had because Kenny came out on tour in 1987. He finally got his card that year after trying like 6 times. So him and I, unbelievably, happened to come out at the same time. We saw each other, but, we said hello, but we were always I was always working with someone else. He always had somebody. But anyway, in 91, he had an opening and he called me up and I said, sure. And, I cut my teeth and got experience, and he had finished second or third a couple times. And then 7 weeks later, we get to Memorial and he ends up winning his first tournament.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, everyone, we're talking to Drano Lano. You can check him out at golfmastery.net. We appreciate you listening to Huddle Up with Gus. So, we say Drano Lano. So tell me where Drano came from. How did you get that nickname?
So around the course where I grew up, I wasn't the best when it came to hitting greens. I'd get it around the green, but I was always around the green a lot, but I could chip and I could get it up and down a lot. I'd make a lot of 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 footers, whether they for par or birdie. And one day this guy looked at me and I was on a run that day. I was making a bunch of putts. He goes, I'm going to start calling you Drano Lano because you make everything. It doesn't hurt that it does. Obviously the rhymes, as you know, always goes with a nickname pretty good, and it stuck. So anyway, I used to putt great. I wished I could putt like that now. But as you know, when you get old, man, the nerves, they're just not there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know that. This year was the first time one of my sons ever beat me. And it was the first time we went out this year. So it was the first time playing. And my son Gabe finally beat me. I didn't shoot well at all. And you could just see the smirk on his face. He goes, Dad, you must be getting old. I'm like, yeah, maybe that's it. I said, that's all right. I'm not going to let them beat me anymore this year. They had their fun. It's okay. We're going to go back at it. But, speaking of draining putts, how does a caddy help a guy that may not be having his best day, but, you've been in those situations because, like you said, you were great around the green. You do all this thing. So how does a caddy help a guy when he's not having his best day? He's not hitting the ball like he wants, but he can still stay in it. How tell me about what the mentality of a caddy has to be.
Well, you have a lot of posts out there. Like I say, you're giving yardage, you're a psychologist, you're supporting, you got to be a coach. You got to, again, but in that situation you're talking about, you just got to keep reminding them how good they are. And it might not be happening today. And it might be just that time that you tell them that, and all of a sudden one goes in, and those guys, honestly, they're so good out there, they could run 5 in a row. So really, it's just keeping that kind of in the present kind of thing going on, and just reminding them and reassuring them. That's really what all the great caddies do. Like I've said, we've watched the PGA Tour for whatever it is, 65, 70 years, and I've never seen a caddy hit a shot. But with that, there's a lot of caddies that have some great influence with their players, and their players trust them. So that's the big thing. Once you build that trust with your player, then it makes it real easy for them to do well, especially in the heat when, it gets down to the last 9 holes on Sunday.
Well, I think this past week we heard about a caddy from, the PGA Championship who came on. It used to be another, was Phil Mickelson's caddy. came and caddied for Justin, right? And like Justin talked about him after the tournament, like I wouldn't have been able to do this without him, right? And he said how important he was to him. But like when you hear about the stories from Phil and his caddy, it's like there's a complete opposite situation. It's really nuts about that whole thing.
And honestly, speaking to that, I mean, I was fortunate over my years to have guys that I worked for. I mean, Kenny, he'd be the first guy to give you credit for anything that you might have helped him with that got him over the edge or whatever it may have been. I mean, I remember the first week that, he won his first tournament, he was 7 under par on this Friday cut day, standing on the 16th tee. And it's one of those days where, as a caddy, you stay out of their way. Well, I'd given him the yardage and he'd pulled the club and he'd gotten over the club and he was ready to go. And all of a sudden he looked up at me. I'm 10 feet away and he says, "You like this club?" And I said, "Well," I go, I was looking at the wind. I said, "I really think you can get the 6 there." So he came over and he put the 5 in, pulled out the 6 and hit this beautiful draw going right at the pin. Two hops, rolled in for a hole in one. And 9 under, broke the course record and went on to beat Hale Irwin in a playoff. So, I mean, that was a great scenario for him. He trusted me there. And those kind of days happen a lot for these guys that you don't hear about. But that's kind of what your job is, and that's what you're there for.
Is that like they were talking about the tradition where like if you're the caddy of the guy who wins the tournament, one of the big majors, the 18th green flag is that they give that to you. And that was one of the big gripes was that Phil Mickelson wasn't doing that. He was like, not kind of carrying through on tradition. Right. Tradition's a big thing. Like even in the NFL, like we take care of our own and we take care of like the equipment guys and the athletic trainers and the strength coach. Yeah, they get paid, but they do so much for you that you want to take care of them. Right. And tell me about that tradition a little bit.
Yeah, well, with every one of my 9 wins, as you know, the caddy gets the pin. So, I mean, basically you get the flag. Some players want you to get the flag for them. I don't know what Bones' deal was with Mickelson. I never did realize that. I just know with me, I was able to get the flags, and I always gave them to my pro. And he wrote a little note on there about the week, and I framed him up, and I have them.
That's awesome.
Down for me, I mean, I only had 9. Bones has probably got 45, 50 wins. I fill a room up with him. But anyway, with that, I was surprised to hear that story. I honestly knew nothing about any of that, to be honest with you, and it surprised me. And I guess, that's just a choice that Mickelson made. I'm not sure why, because like I said, Bones was very, influent. He was very effective and helped Phil a ton out there. So that must have been a decision that he made. But obviously, JT, he's got a different perspective on it. He had the same perspective with his previous caddy, Jimmy Johnson, who he won several tournaments with. So it's all in the golfer.
Well, I mean, you got to have some help. Like, JT was talking about like he's down 7 coming into the final round, and he wins the thing. I mean, you got to have some help. You got to have some, like you said, you got to build them up. It's like if they're doing well, you leave them go. But there's times it said, "Hey, don't worry, you're great. You're going to be good. You just keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to be there." And he talked a lot about that.
Yeah, and you know what? These guys, it's hard for them to like believe that. Like I'm sure Justin believed, or JT believed in his talent that day. But when you look up and think about 7 down, I mean, that's not easy to overcome. Now, did he have a little help? Yeah, the boys came back to him a little, but he did his job. He shot, I think it was 4 under on the back. So he met him at the pass and he did his deal. And lo and behold, walked away with a trophy. That's what I tell people. I mean, golf's really hard game, even for those guys that know where they're generally going to hit it every day.
If you could say, how could you compare golf to life? What do you tell people about that? Because I think there are metaphors in it, right? Like about it. And so tell me your experience with it and how you kind of have compared it to life.
Well, for me, I mean, one of my highest things is honesty and integrity. And, you're your own referee out there in golf. I mean, obviously, if the ball rolls and you're in the woods and there's no one there, but it rolls, there's only one person that knows that's got to call that penalty shot. So with that, the honesty and integrity is huge. The etiquette, being a gentleman. I mean, golf's a gentleman's game. and having the etiquette and respecting the course and respecting the player. Those are all the kind of things you're going to have to do in life when you're dealing with people, business, when you move on to do things. That's what's going to get respect back for you.
Yeah, when I play a course and you see people that don't fix their ball marks, and I think about my dad when he used to yell at me about tearing his grass up. I'm like, oh, he would be pissed at these people for just fix your ball, your spot. Like, it's not that hard. It's like they give you all the stuff to fix it. Just do it. It takes 2 seconds.
Yeah. And there was a friend of mine, like we played this really nice course. And, I generally try to fix, because it's just in my blood. I try to fix 2 or 3 a green, whether they're mine or not. And we're playing this really nice country club, and I'm looking around and the greens are perfect, but I'm going, there were 3 or 4 there. And I don't know if you know, my friends in agronomist, he told me, Andy, if they don't fix those things take 6 to 8 days to heal if you don't get it kind of right there.
Yeah.
So imagine if everybody teed off and did 2 or 3 that day at your club, your greens would be immaculate. I mean, they just would.
Yeah.
Kind of a neglected thing, like you said.
Yeah, I think, when you play public courses, obviously people think, oh, it's public, we just trash it. We don't care. But it's the same thing. If you just did that, like the next time you came back to play, the greens would be so much better. Like people just don't get it. And I get upset about that. So, and I try to, when you talk about a gentleman's game and etiquette and all that, I've always been big on that. And I try to teach my sons that, and they've gotten better. But like when they were learning, and they'd walk across somebody's line, or, they didn't know, like, okay, now it's you're closest or you're furthest away, so you pull the pin. There's just different things that you got to learn. I think it helps even with parenting. Like if you go out with your kids and you're just teaching them how to be a good person.
Yeah, and it's about respect too. I mean, with that, like, moving further, replacing a divot, raking a bunker correctly so that, like, I am in the bunker and then you hit it in behind me, you don't get a bag rate job. And technically by the rules on tour, those guys can't touch it. But we play a lot of local rules now because it's neglected so bad. It's not fair. If you hit it in a hazard, someone didn't rake it. Why should you be at that beckoning and call? So they've made certain better local rules. But yeah, I mean, it's all about that. That's all part of it. Keeping your opponent's score in a tournament. That's all part of the game. That's how it all started back in the day.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if you had to go out and caddy right now of all the incredible courses throughout the world that you've been on, and you said, man, I just want to walk this one course with my guy. So what would be the course and who would be the guy you'd want to go back with?
That's a great question. I mean, for me, it would be probably Pebble. I really enjoyed the walk at Pebble. I figured the other day, I think I've probably caddied 50 rounds there.
Yeah.
I'm actually getting a bucket list check next month. I'm actually getting to play it. So I'm looking forward to that. I mean, the golfer, it might be my dad. My dad is the reason that I am who I am today with sports and everything else. And he didn't get to play Pebble. So with that, I would probably have to give him the nod and loop for him.
Now, would your dad go, you don't know what you're talking about. Just give me the 5-iron.
Well, I got to tell you, we played some father and sons along the way. We won a couple here in the state. They had one every year. Every year they had the Father's Day, father and son, and they'd have different age. And he started me at a young age. And, we'd kind of, towards the end, when I started learning, we'd go back and forth. But I mean, generally, he knew what he was doing and I followed his lead. I remember 5 years old, we came to a par 3 with a lake and I couldn't hit it over. So he told me to tap it. So I tapped it 3 feet. And he hit it over onto the green. We made our bogey and moved on. So, those kind of things, they seem small, but just the strategy of the game and getting out there and doing that stuff. I always encourage parents now to try to do those things with their kids, girls and boys.
Yeah. It's amazing how golf is changing kind of in that way. It's becoming more diverse and culturally it's changing too, right? Where we're getting different people in there, which I love.
Incredible. I mean, incredible. Like I said, it's worldwide now more than it ever has. And I mean, I don't really like to give COVID any credit, but I can honestly say in the United States, COVID saved the golf industry. I mean, golf is booming now. And it was kind of laying quiet right about the time it happened. And my friends, anybody I talked to said, yeah, it's insane now. I mean, I'm crazy busy, and it's great because it got people out that played golf. It got people out that figured they'd never even try golf,
right?
And get outdoors, and now they're hooked because you and I know it's addictive.
Oh, it's very, once you start playing and you get, like, if you go out, like I couldn't play for the last month because I had my gallbladder out, and you know, I'm itching to get back out there. This weekend I can go back out and play again. But you know, once you get going and like you had that shot that you just keep thinking about, like that, man, that was you know, you chip it in, like I Dranoed one, right? Like that, it just keeps you coming back.
Right. I always say you can have the worst day, but it's that one time, if you have that shot, that's going to just make you come back. I mean, I had one the other day. I wasn't playing great, but I hit one and I made a long putt, and I'd happened to be working on this chip shot, and I actually executed it like I used to do years ago. And you know, because I'm trying to play a little more golf this year, try to get my rounds up more than I have in the past. So that's kind of my goal this year. So yeah, it's exactly what you said. I mean, it's crazy. You're never, ever going to quit chasing it.
Yeah, no. And so I wanted to talk to you. So in football, you know, we play Sundays, right? You could play Monday or Thursday or whatever, but you play Sundays. Saturday night, you know, you get done with your meetings and you're in your hotel room by yourself, and all you're thinking about are the plays and the defense and everything. And sometimes you got to call somebody to calm yourself down, or, you know what I mean? Like there's people that are in your space that help you with all that stuff. Now you've obviously been in a lot of majors. You've been with guys who won big tournaments. That Saturday night for those guys, when they know they got a chance to go out and win, like, do you have some crazy stories about them? Like, hey, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, or do they usually pretty calm in that scenario?
I mean, what I try to do for them personally is I always try to search for some what I call fresh stuff that they might not have heard from me. Try to get them. It's all for me. It's all going to be about the mental side of it, because generally the physical side, they're going to be pretty ready there. You know, they've played well for 3 days, and unless they got an injury or something happened. So for me, I focused on the mental side. I mean, that's what made Tiger Woods. I mean, obviously he's one of the greatest players ever, but his mental game, I mean, never seen anybody as strong as him, because there's a guy that didn't have to have his A game and he could win, because he did, you know, he was just so tough and so strong mentally. So for me, I tried to have some preparatory things for my player, whoever it was, something fresh, something encouraging, something positive, so that if we got to that point where you could see things maybe starting to get away, you remind them, you throw that in there, and you hope it gets you, you know, further down the road.
Yeah, that's always a good point, because anytime you're with someone, I think that when you can give them energy and lift them up in a positive way, it's a great thing. And were you ever caddying for guys who didn't want, like, you know what I mean? Like I know there's people that don't want people saying stuff to them, or usually when you caddy, they know that you're safe, and so they'll let you say whatever.
Yeah, so generally you have that figured out. Like I always tell people they're all different. Like Kenny Perry was different than Tom Watts, who was different than Nick Faldo, who was different than Michelle Weiss. So they all want their information a certain way, and you kind of learn that. I mean, obviously spending 14 years with Kenny Perry, he knew me like a book, and I knew him like a book. And, you know, I knew how to read putts for him because I knew exactly how he would hit them. And he would want me to, you know, I would look him straight in the eye and I'd say, look, this putt is really, really fast. I mean, he wanted that information. Then there was other pros that they might not want that information because it might scare them or take them off their game. So you just kind of figure that out and know kind of where you can go. And that's what Bones does so great. Joe LaCava does it great. Ted Scott, they all do it great with their players because they know where they can go and where they're needed.
Well, you knew Kenny for so long, you caddied him for a long time. Was it like, okay, Kenny hits a long drive, we got a long walk, you guys just start bullshitting about life and family and stuff, or is it just always focused?
Oh, no. We talk about sports, and, you know, he's a big sports guy and I was a big sports guy. And, you know, obviously we had different teams along the way, but he loved sports. That was kind of his outlet, you know,
yeah.
Done, you know, where you're watching the game tonight, all that kind of thing. Because once you get away from that arena, those guys need a break from that arena. They don't need to golf and take it home with them and all that, good or bad, 65 or 75. So the ones that can leave it there and then go and kind of do something else and come back, you'll find those are the ones that are really kind of rocking and rolling out there, and they're able to get, and plus it saves them a bunch of energy.
Oh yeah, because if your mind is focused on like my next shot all the time, like I would think after 18 holes and 4 days straight, like you're spent.
No, you're exhausted. And like Kenny, he didn't even carry a yardage book. I basically had that. A lot of these guys now, they're looking at the maps and all that, but not all of them do the numbers. So with that, the maps, the pictures are so great. But Kenny, all he wanted to do is play. He was what I call a field player. So, he would get the number and everything, but he was a field player. He wasn't so much a technical player. This technical and feel out there, and they all get it done. They all can get it done and arrive at the same place. But with Kenny's feel, that's how it worked best for him. And that's what he knew worked best for him. And, I think it's important that each player knows their limits and knows who they are and maintains that and doesn't try to be anyone else.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. We're talking with Drano Lano. Check him out at golfmastery.net. You can go there and really get a feel for the game. He helps you out with it. He has tons of experience on the golf course helping people. So check him out at golfmastery.net. So I think one of the biggest things about the game is, we look at these guys, just like when I play, people want to play that sport, but you just can't go out and play football. What's great is I can go out and try to mimic somebody that I've watched on TV, right? And I can go out and try to hook a ball. I can go out and, and do all that work where that's not happening. I mean, that's a small percentage in football, but anyone can go out and golf. And so with what you're doing now, how do you work all that in and everything that you've learned about the game and been across the world and put into what you're doing personally now?
So what I try to do, first of all, is, people are interested in the game, and I try to tell them that not to worry too much about score, basically just trying to get the fundamentals, the grip, the stand, just the basic stuff. So if you teach them something and they drop a club and then they pick it up a year ago, they're going to know I need, to hold the club this way or whatever. Because some people that I've found it's different. They didn't maybe want to take it up and run with it at first, but then on the second run, they grabbed it and they did run with it and they did really take to golf or whatever. But I think it's that. And I think it's, I always do emphasize that it's a really tough game. And if you really want to get good at it, it's a muscle memory game and you're going to have to put some practice time in. And if you've got, young people with parents, with kids, work, et cetera, it's tough to juggle all that, to be quite honest. So, there's a lot of golf widows out there because of the guys that decided to go ahead and go to the golf course, not be there for the kids or whatever. But anyway, with that's where I try to start. And then from there, I just try to remind them that it's a lifetime sport. You got 50, 60 years here to figure it out. So you don't have to know it by Monday. So if they're patient enough and they can have at least the right guidance to get it airborne, generally they run with it.
Yeah. So, obviously golf, most courses you can go to, besides all the private courses, but even some of the private courses, you can ride a cart, right? You can get in a cart and go and play. And you've walked so many courses. What do you tell people, if they want to walk and they're not sure, because it is kind of far if you haven't done it and they can't carry their bags, they ride a cart. But tell me your advice on the difference between riding in a cart and playing and walking and playing.
Okay, so what I find with that, there's a couple things. One, so I don't like a cart myself. I like to walk for a couple things. One, the game's pretty demanding. So the time that you have, the recovery time of hitting a shot, good, bad, or indifferent, sometimes getting in a cart and getting in there too soon and you're not ready to regroup, that's not a good thing. It happens at certain courses and there's certain people that just can't not use a cart.
Right.
I'm a walker for that reason, because I think you need to kind of digest everything as you're going and kind of be able to have time to regroup. And sometimes the cart doesn't allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Interesting story. I think Jack Nicklaus came up to Arnold Palmer when he turned 50, and they were talking about the Champions Tour, what's now the Champion Tour. Now, I don't know if you've heard this story, but so he went up to Arnold and he said, Arnold, and they were talking about this. And the first thing Arnold looked at him, he said, Jack, he said, don't get in that cart. And Jack looked at him. He goes, I'm just telling you, don't do it. He goes, walk as long as you can. And it's not like Jack probably didn't know that, but Arnold knew. Arnold walked, honestly. I think he walked till he was like 82 or 3 years old. I mean, because he knew if you got in that cart, it was only going to go one way. You weren't going to do, you were not going to be as strong. He just kind of knew that. And that was an interesting tidbit that he shared with Jack. And Jack never got in the cart until recently. Now he's 82 or whatever. He walked all the time out there.
What do you think?
And the cart thing, though, I would still encourage someone that if they can't walk, the cart's the next best thing. That's a great vehicle for them to be able to get around. They're still outdoors and they're doing it.
What do you think people think of professionally now, not the fans, because the fans do it a lot, but when the pros, what do you think, or what have you heard when you see John Daly riding the cart on the tour?
I mean, John Daly is one of my favorites. I got to know him. I was there that week that he came, that he put himself up to the forefront of golf when he surprised the world at Crooked Stick in 91.
Yeah.
He right now, he kind of has to use it. I can tell you if he didn't have to use the cart, he wouldn't. I know he's having some, physical problems, some health problems. And, it stinks for him because he's he really is pretty good for the game, in my opinion, because he's one of the good old boys that talk to the crowd. And, he liked being with the caddies. And, I pray for John and hope that, things work out for him. But that I can tell you that he doesn't enjoy being in the cart, but I know he hates being penalized, not being able to play in certain tournaments because they're going to make him walk. So it's a kind of a two-edged sword there, I guess. But with that, I mean, I hope that they can, it's just like the Casey Martin thing or whatever. But some guys, when they get to a certain time, they have to ride the chariot or they can't play at all. I'd rather see John Daly hit shots and get in a cart than not see him at all.
Right. Well, it could be the 25 Diet Cokes he drinks a day.
The fact that he doesn't drink water. I was like, come on, JD, you got to change that one for us.
Oh, that was the best after that one turn. Was it last week or the week before? That guy, they followed him around and they said what he had during the tournament was like 25 Diet Cokes, couple Snickers.
It's incredible.
Smoke like a pack of cigarettes, whatever.
He's amazing. And
right.
Not a lot of people know that he's won 2 majors. I mean, he won at at St. Andrews and he won at Crooked Stick and could have maybe won a few more, if he had maybe a little more, focused direction, but he's still great for the game. And, I'll always appreciate the times I was able to, play, be in the group with John and talk to him.
Yeah. I when I was in Washington, they were playing, I think it was TPC at Avenel there. And I followed him around just because I wanted to watch him hit. He was young and man, it was a different level of watching guys hit the ball.
Oh no, incredible. And this was before they did all this stuff to the golf ball and before they did all this launching stuff to the new drivers and all that. He was hitting this stuff with wood. I mean, metal woods were there, don't get me wrong, but he won the 1991 PGA with a Kevlar driver from Cobra. I actually got a model at home in my bag and I had him sign the top of it. And if you look down at this thing, it looks like a 5-wood now.
Wow.
And I mean, it didn't have a big hitting area, but it did that week because I can tell you that course, Crooked Stick, that win was, with no practice round. Again, so another caddy story. He was able to get Nick Price's caddy, and Nick Price at the time was one of the top players in the world. His wife was having having a baby, and so he was unable. He had to withdraw. So his caddy was there who knew the course, and he bird dogged Daly around the place. The next thing you know, he's taking the 18th flag off, and Daly signing that for him. Jeff Squeaky Medlin, great caddy, no longer with us, God rest his soul, but another unbelievable story.
Yeah, there's so many, and it's been so much fun to watch all the people that have come through the sport of golf. And it's great too, because then you can still, if you've been a fan of a person, then they get, it's a long time to be a fan of someone, because then all of a sudden they go to Champions Tour and they're still playing. You can watch them, you can check them out. It's interesting to see all of that. So now you've been through, your kind of career as a caddy, you get done. So tell me like what golfmastery.net is about, why you started it, and kind of who your kind of target market is.
So after taking a couple of years, my wife, and a few people talked to me a little bit, 25 years, walking next to and, the best players in the world and seeing how they prepare and seeing, what they do against adversity versus what they do when they're playing good. And just being able to see all that like firsthand and be there and witness it. So basically just trying to take that and share that with folks. And then in the meantime, too, while they're doing that, they're maintaining an incredibly high level in competition and playing golf for money. So, I mean, it's an incredible thing in trying to transition that into folks that, hey, maybe there's someone that wants to try to do that too. Or maybe there's someone that wants to go and play college golf or whatever it may be. I mean, I've pretty much seen all the, the secrets. I don't know if you want to call them secrets, but there's some pretty, interesting stuff that these guys do to maintain that. And, it's definitely worth, share. I want to share it with folks. The game of golf's been great with me, and I want to pass that on. So basically, I'm just trying to share all those nuggets and those knowledge with folks. And I mean, my target market is anywhere from anyone that's, 10 years old to, anyone that's even 50 plus that wants to hear some great stories. I can fill them up with them too and get them going on the game as well.
Yeah. So if I sign up at golfmastery.net, tell me like what do I get? Like when I sign up and how does Drano come into my life and affect my game?
So the first thing we do is we have 3 Zoom meetings, and we get acquainted with like what your goals are, where you want to go with golf. We get to kind of know each other, obviously through this, Zoom, which has been obviously quite popular through all of this. So then you kind of figure out, we kind of work together on like, what's your plan? And I'll input what I think might be good. So together you kind of create a plan, you start the plan, and then you kind of get going on the plan. And then we check in as time goes by.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so do you have other things on there like new technologies or the rules? Like, what are you teaching people on there?
I have like the caddy experience. I have, how you prepare a course prior to playing in a tournament. I have putting tips, reading greens, what your mental, preparation should be or could be when you enter a tournament, where you kind of want to be with that. So there's lots of areas. It just depends on the level with that. But I can honestly say that there isn't probably an area that I couldn't help someone with, depending on whether they're a beginner and even experienced player. I can help them too, obviously. I mean, caddy, I have a caddy experience on there. I have come and play with your members, come out there and just caddy for all 4 of your members at your club. I mean, there's lots of options there on the menu. And that's pretty much what it is. It's really no real limit. You can pretty much draw up whatever you want. And that's what we discuss in the Zoom calls.
That's awesome. You go to golfmastery.net and get some real personal, right, coaching, some understanding of the game, which helps you in every aspect of it. So if I was a guy, I walk up to see you and I walk up to Drano and I said, Drano, I need one tip to help my game. What's the one tip you're giving me?
Okay, so my one tip would be the grip. So the biggest thing that I see with folks when they start golf is they don't have the proper grip. So I really focus on that, because guess what? That's where it all starts. That's what you're grabbing. And that thing there is what's going to make, as we talked about earlier, that ball that's not moving, that, being able to have the correct grip and for you to be able to square that club up, whether it's now or 5 days from now, it's important to have that grip. So it sounds very simple, but you'd be amazed the people that just grab it like a baseball bat, or they have one hand under or whatever. Yeah. And, not every grip works for everybody. But generally, if you've got the general grip, that's my one thing that I go with, because otherwise you're not going to be hitting it. You're not going to get it airborne a lot, and you're probably not going to be very accurate. Then you're going to lose patience. So then there's a little bit of a kind of an avalanche that happens if you don't get that grip right, in my opinion.
Right. I love that. All right. So you've caddied for a bunch of incredible people. I'm going to say one term to you and tell me like who it makes you think of, right? There's a saying, drive for show, putt for dough. And so like who comes to mind when I say that phrase to you?
Drive for show, putt for dough. So, I mean, I would say Daly on the driving, and putting would be, one of the best putters I've ever seen out there would have been, in his day, believe it or not, it was Tom Watson. The guy was incredible. And that's obviously, he was amazing, not only with the short game. So the other thing that we really haven't touched on, but doesn't really, the short game. So the other thing about golf too, is people don't realize that's 40% of your game. So the pin and the putting, that's kind of where it's at. If you got to really practice something, that's what I always push, not being what I call a range rat helps. But to me, that's 40%. Think about that, 40% of your game. So if you're good at that, it makes up for a lot of bad days. So again, I'd have to go with Daly on the smashing. Obviously, this guy's now, but I'm thinking in my era when I caddied,
right?
Probably Watson with the putting.
Yeah, the putting, I tell my sons, I said, if you really want to see what your score could be and like where you need to work on, just put every hole, how many putts it took, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, right? And then you add those up at the end and you're like, okay, that I had 10-foot putts. It took me 3 times to get in the hole. If it takes me 1 to think about what my score could be, like the putting is so important. Like most times, even if you're not a great golfer, you can get to the hole to make par, right?
That's these guys on TV. How many times have you seen them where, it's one makeup shot for them? Obviously, they're the best 1% in the world, but that still works for you and I. If we have that one shot, we're probably not making much worse than a bogey on a hole, and that's always good. I always try to coach my young kids. I would stay away from the doubles. If you hit it in the tree, take your penalty, kick it out, get your bogey, and move on or whatever. But stay away from those doubles.
Yeah, the doubles will kill you. That's for sure.
They add up way too fast.
Yeah. So tell me what you're doing up in Maine right now.
So came in here. We're in our 8th year. We have the Lano Family Foundation, and every year, for the last 8 out of 10 years, we give a scholarship in my dad's honor at his high school. We give a $10,000 scholarship to a student athlete at Portland High that best emulates the criteria for the Handy Andy Award. The Lano Family Foundation is a 501c3 public charity. So we decided after my dad passed away that we would do this in his honor. And so we just had our 8th recipient, and he's fantastic. He's actually going to be our first recipient to play NCAA football. So we've had several baseball players, one basketball player, a softball player. We've had 8 recipients so far. Close to all of them. I stay in touch with them. They're all doing really great. And as you know, because you had kids and you've already done the deal, college is super expensive this year, and we're just trying to help them on their road to their dreams.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so how many years have you been doing the tournament?
So we've been, the Lano Family Foundation been in existence for 10, but this is the 8th coming up in July, because obviously with COVID, we got put to the corner with state rules, et cetera. We couldn't generally have 160 folks at ours. So we have a pretty big event. We raise a pretty good amount of dollars, not only for that, but we also give to the Maine State Golf Association and the Girls and Boys Club Youth Basketball. So again, these are all things that my dad loved. We actually give to the same boys club that he was in when he was 12 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we support their girls and boys clubs. We pay their jerseys and their entry fees for them so they can play winter basketball. So
what is the site for the Lano Family Foundation?
So it's thelanofamily.org. It's under construction right now, but it will be up soon. We had some issues with it. Actually, we're still rebuilding it. But yeah, it's got a lot on there. And once we get it back up and running, that's where it is now. But with that, they can, if there's anybody that's interested, they can contact me or anything involved. The name of our tournament is right here. It's the Action Andy Memorial Classic. my dad liked to have some action when he played golf, whether it was a couple bucks, $5, whatever. And his nickname was Action Andy. So that we named the tournament after him, and it's been great.
What was his favorite game to play?
Baseball.
No, I'm talking about like on the course, like woof or.
That. Okay. Well, no, he just liked any kind of Nassau with presses.
Oh, okay. That's it.
So they'd play, $10 automatic twos is what it was called. So if you got 2 down, you didn't even have to talk about it. The card just read itself at the end. So that, and then they'd play, they'd play no 3 putts and all that. I mean, there was every game possible that you can include in that 4 hours. So, it was great. I mean, it was just, it rubbed off on me. I mean, we always like to have a little competition. It's good. It helps you keep sharp, and it helps, make each shot important, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I love playing the games because it does keep it interesting, and it doesn't have to be for crazy, insane money. It's just about like, okay, there's 4 of us out here. We all get to play against each other. We all get to play with each other. And there's different ways to go about that. Do you talk about that all on golfmastery.net?
For sure. I mean, I think that walk that you have, that 4 hours, I mean, I played with someone today, small world. That's like, he's very good friends with my center in high school.
Oh, so really?
Quarterback, my center. Yeah. He goes, do you know Paul? And I go, yeah, of course I know Paul. And just that today, like golf brings everybody together. And again, getting back to your question. Yeah. I mean, just having that camaraderie, that 4 hours of being outside and everybody playing from the same tees and everybody having the same opportunity, really. Now, some better than others, but still, that's what makes golf unique and makes it so cool that one day Joe might beat you, but the next day you might beat Joe, and so on and so forth. And that's what keeps everybody keeps their energy high, and everybody, keeps chasing, as I say, they keep chasing that, whatever it is they're doing to shoot that low score. Like I got a side bet with a friend of mine. We each have 2 hole-in-ones right now. We're stuck on 2. So we've agreed that the next one that makes one, we have to give the other guy $100. So with that, I had a close call a week or 2 ago. He had a close call, but we haven't made it yet. And you know the odds of that.
I've had 2 myself, so I know it's not easy.
Yeah. So just little games like that you can have within. I think it's great. And I think it's great after when you're sitting in there and you're reviewing the card and everybody kind of, hey, how about that up and down you had, or how about that shot you hit on that hole? I mean, it's the same on all levels, whether you're just starting or whether you're these guys. These guys don't think that these guys on tour, they don't see each other in the locker room and say, hey, that shot you played on 16, that was incredible. Yeah, they're saying that. They're still having those conversations.
So before we go, what happens on tour when somebody, I mean, we see it quite often, is when a guy gets a hole-in-one, what is like the precedent? What happens? Like, I mean, because it's even for the pros, it doesn't happen that often.
Right. So with that, I mean, they kind of shake it off. Kenny he was up in the teen. And when last I checked, he was well over 12. But like, funny story, recently I was at TPC at this most recent one, and I was up in the caddy room getting some things signed for our tournament. And I had an open flag that I wanted Shane Lowry to sign, right? And unbelievably, he comes around the corner, and he sits in there, and he comes walking in. I had the flag, and I said, hey, Shane, I go, can you sign this? I used to caddy out here. I go, I got a foundation now. And he said, sure. He couldn't be any nicer, and signed it or whatever. And the next day, what does he do? He makes it on 17.
Yeah, I remember that. It was awesome.
Well, but then what does he do after that? He set up the press room with beer, the whole, like, he bought like several cases of beer and the whole thing and whatever. So to answer your question, that's what Shane Lowry did. I don't know what I think Cam Smith did something too for the media as well when he won that week. So I know he did something for a lot of the caddies that week as well. So it's all in the holder of the individual. It's all different. But like I always joke when they make one, I go, do you have hole-in-one insurance?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
People don't even know that's in existence, but yes, it is in existence.
Well, when you go in afterwards, if anybody makes a hole-in-one and you're in the bar area afterwards, it could be a lot of fun.
Yes, it can. And I'll tell you what, if I can get there the next time, I'll be happy to buy them until the sun comes down, because they don't happen very much. My last one was 30 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Mine was I was playing in the quarterback challenge out in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Oh,
and I had
it on the island green.
No, it wasn't the island green. It was a shorter par 3. What number was it? But it was only like a 140. So This is a crazy story, Andy. That was the only place in the course where they could put the Cadillac, right? So there's a Cadillac on the hole. I'm playing with Rick Dixon, who was the AD of the Washington State at the time, and then I was playing with Dan McGuire, Mark's brother. And so there's 4 of us, right? And my wife is actually pregnant in the cart, and she's riding around with us. So they're filming the hole, and it bounces, hits the stick, goes right in, like going crazy. And at that point, like I was like, okay, I don't even care what happens the rest of the round, right? But I was having fun, and everybody's coming up to me saying, "Hey, how are you going to get home?" Sonny Jurgensen's like, "How are you going to get that car home?" and all this stuff. And so we're at the banquet afterwards. And my wife's sitting there. We're sitting with Sonny Jurgensen and Billy Kilmer and a bunch of other guys we knew. And so they're kind of announcing all the winners, right? Long drive and all this stuff, right? And they said, "Hey, we had a hole-in-one today. Gus Ferrata had a hole-in-one on number 3, whatever it was." And Sonny's like, "Oh, here you go. You're going to get the car." And they said, "All right, come up and claim your prize." So I get up and I walk up, and they gave me a picture of the hole, right? And everybody started standing up and booing. But they're like, "No, the hole was too short. There was no insure. We couldn't insure that hole." But they had the car and everything on that hole, and everybody was like, "Boo! Give him the car."
Oh no, that's funny you mentioned that, because in our tournament we've had some local sponsors that will put a car out there, but the hole has to be 150 plus yards for the insurance company. Right. So that's a bummer. And I'm headed up that way where I got our Irish. We've had a group go to Ireland, and we're going up to play 6 days up there, 6 out of 7 days. And that's one of the courses we're playing. We're playing there in the Circling Raven, Gamble stands, the whole thing. So
beautiful up there.
That's happening in September. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. None of them have ever played any golf in Washington or Idaho. I've played Chambers Bay. That's about it.
Yeah, it's just beautiful courses. And then when you play that island green, if it's windy at all, forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it. It's like 4 or 5.
I always kind of wonder, I'm like, where's the drop zone? It's over after you get off the boat, right?
Yeah. It's insane. Like then they can move it. It's like it can go, they'll change the
right. It's on a pulley, right? I heard.
Yeah.
So they can.
Yeah. So it can be from like 130 whole way out to like 200.
Yeah, I'm praying the day that we're there. I'm hoping it's no more than an 8, because I'm like you. I don't want to have to try to steer job one on there.
Oh yeah, no. There's no doubt. So Drano, you're doing some amazing things. You're going back to your community. You're doing things with your family. The foundation is amazing. You're trying to help people kind of gain knowledge like you've gained your whole life with golfmastery.net. And so tell our fans, obviously, where they can find you, how they can follow you, and check out what you're doing.
The Instagram, I'm at Drano Lano. So that one's pretty easy. Twitter, I'm on Twitter at @alano2. Not on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. So, they can go there. I do some occasional stuff. I'm working with someone to be better at that, to be honest with you. But that, and of course, golfmastery.net, that website's up and running, and that's really kind of my vetted place. It's got a lot of areas on there that you can check and see, where I've been, what I've done, that kind of thing, just for folks, just to say, hey, they, trying to figure out where they may or may not want to go. But I definitely at least recommend to at least try and have the Zoom call. I mean, it's $99 for a subscription. That's like $6 a month to have that at your fingertips. So with that, that's kind of where it's at. Again, I love golf. Golf's been great to me. And, for the remaining years that I'm here, I want to try to give back and share the stuff that I've been fortunate enough to witness and learn.
Yeah. So you heard him, $6 a month to get full access to Drano Lano and all his mastery in golf. So one last question. Who's your favorite golfer today that's currently on tour?
So, yeah, I mean, I like I'll tell you what, I like Scotty Scheffler, and I can tell you a little backstory behind him. So I lived in Dallas prior to moving to Vancouver for 22 years. And I met and saw Scotty Scheffler, who was 16 years old. And they got him out to the Byron Nelson, which was right there where I lived in Dallas in our backyard. And I met, and he was, I know his coach, Randy Smith, and know a lot of Randy Smith's other pupils, Justin Leonard, he's had some Ryan Palmer anyway. So got to meet this guy, and I kind of always remembered that name, and I followed him, read about him at Texas, read about him, doing well on the Corn Ferry. And then, when he got his card and I saw what he was doing, and I was like, man, I just kind of think this guy's really going to do well. But what I like most is I really like his demeanor. I love the way his kind of soft delivery, and he's kind of real easygoing. And now he's got Ted Scott, a good friend of mine, that's helping him, and he's in really good hands. And as you can see, they've done some serious damage the last four wins in the last 80 days. But I love his demeanor and I like his attitude. Whether he shoots 66 or 76, he knows that there's other things that are important in life, and in golf is, it's just a game, and I don't mean to discount it, but you and I know there's way more valuable things in life than that. But I just love his approach.
Yeah, you heard it right here. You got to follow Scotty Scheffler. I agree with you. His approach is great. His demeanor, his poise, and you got to have that, I think, on the golf course to be viable today, because otherwise you get yourself stressed out, and you know how stress is on a golf course. It's not a good thing.
It's going to shorten your career. That's what it's going to do.
Well, I don't know if, I agree with that. Like you got to be able to relax and do that. And good caddies like Drano will always do that. So, hey, Drano, I appreciate you joining me again, and finally getting this podcast back out with you on it. So go to golfmastery.net, check them out, check out their family foundation. And he's putting a website out soon, but follow him on Instagram, Twitter, right? You're on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
For sure. Thanks, Gus. And we got to get together. I want to get my way up there so I can get a swing at Oakmont. I've caddied there, but I never played it. So it's kind of on my list too.
Well, when you come in, we'll play the tips.
Pure punishment.
Yeah, exactly. And we just need to drink after that just because you played the tips. So that sounds like
that's right.
All right, buddy.
We won't tell the caddies otherwise either.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, take care. Enjoy Maine and the rest of your summer. Thanks for joining me on Huddle Up with Gus.
You got it. Thank you.
And that's a wrap, sports fans. Thanks for joining in the fun at the 1631 Digital Studios for another action-packed Huddle Up with Gus, featuring 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte. Huddle Up with Gus is proudly produced by 1631 Digital Media and is available on Apple Music,